home from work. So please take care of your business as we're waiting for everyone, and then we will go into what we'll be focusing on for this evening for everybody. Okay. All right. All right, everybody. My name is Anna Maria Vaccaro. Anna Maria is my preference, or AMV, if that's a mouthful for everyone. I have been very fortunate for practically a decade now to be the Magis College advisor for St. Ignatius. It has been a wonderful journey dealing with so many Magis students. Every time I see a student, just maybe like 30 minutes ago, we just had a Magis College workshop with our wonderful seniors rushing to get those November 1st deadline applications, or when we had our quarter break and we had our Magis alum come back from even as class of 2016, talking about their journey, their experiences. But like I always like to tell everyone, the journey is possible because of you. Whether you are a sibling back there, an aunt, an uncle, a guardian, a parent, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, when I was in high school, for some of you may not know, I'm a native San Franciscan, went to Mission Dolores, still live not too far from it as well. And I didn't appreciate my parents for the multiple jobs that they worked. My mom, you know, cleaning medical buildings as a janitor at night. My dad waking up at like 4:30 in the morning, getting his truck ready for the construction work he did. I didn't appreciate it, but one of the things is, though, they didn't say much about college education. They only went up to 5th grade education, but they show me with their actions that nothing's impossible unless you think it's impossible. And one thing that I have always seen through my students, for those of you who are new to me, I've been doing this for, yes, 26 years. Yes, proudly 26 years. I just dye my hair a lot. You know, and then it's the stories of my students when I bump into them now who have families and beautiful children. Yes, I'm old enough where, for those of you know who Mr. Delaney, I was a high school counselor at George Washington High School when Mr. Delaney was in high school over there. You know, they've shown me this attitude, can't stop, won't stop. And you're doing that today of let's getting this opportunity. So let's just talk about the format and then we'll go straight into the presentation. So tonight we're going to talk about financial aid. So if you are a parent from the class of 2021 or the class of 2024, welcome, because money is in everyone's mind. And even if you had older kids who've done this before, it is still a scary year about applying financially. I think dealing with money, period, is always is kind of scary. And I do want to say right now that I'm really glad that you're here tonight. I see some veteran parents, some new parents and guardians, because all the colleges nationwide got a hit financially because of the pandemic. And based on that, everyone, right? I know my household and probably yours are looking at your dollars and cents to make sure that everything's in order. Now, that doesn't mean that financial aid stop. That doesn't mean that there's not some great financial opportunities, but that just means that we gotta step back a little bit. And maybe a student may have to add some more colleges on their list that for sure is affordable. Right? I think a lot of times when a student says, I want to stay in California, I want to be in a big city, and I'm like, oh, some of those California schools that do meet full need are super hard to get into. And not that our Magis students can't get into them, they have, but it's still hard to get into. And there are some schools that tend to have more assets from the Midwest to the East Coast, mainly because they've been around for a lot longer, right? So it's really important. Diversity is important in many things, but if ever, diversity is important for the college application process. So if you have a question at any time during the presentation, because I was telling my students, Talking about money is complicated. So go put your information on the chat, even if it's just a brief word on there. You could ask your student. They know how to, try to raise your hand. But everyone's going to be on the mute mode so that we could just make sure that we hear this presentation. So unless there's any questions to start off, we're going to start off. But don't worry, there will be questions at the end. There will be questions at the end. All right. So we're going to share this presentation for you guys, and I will be also giving this presentation PowerPoint to our wonderful fearless Mr. Brian right here. So let's go begin. So this PowerPoint presentation was produced by the California State Aid Commission, the people who give free money from your state where you're paying your taxes. On there. And one of the forms that you'll be filling out, or you maybe already filled out, is the FAFSA form. And we'll go all into that. A lot of people think it's only FAFSA. It's actually a lot of many different forms. So we're going to talk today about the different types of financial aid, what type of forms. We will cover the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA. Notice the word free. So if anyone's asking you for your money, it's called a scam. But also, if you are a DACA student, or you, not your parents, but you, the student, you have a student who's undocumented, the California DREAM Act. So just to let you know, if a student is a permanent resident or U.S. citizen, they can still do the FAFSA form. But if the student is DACA or undocumented, they would do the California DREAM Act instead. So yes, there is financial aid opportunities for them as well. And then everyone, the Cal Grant GPA verification, and then the infamous CSS Profile. And then we will also answer your questions. So let's first talk about different types of financial aid. So I want to be clear that there is financial aid for someone who could afford $0 to $100,000 each year for college, right? So one of them is known as gift aid. So gift aid is free money. Yes, free money. Now, when you get a gift aid from a grant, whether from the college or from the government, that means you've demonstrated you needed money. Maybe I could only pay $5,000, so they're going to give you some free money to kind of help with the difference. But also there's scholarships that could be given to you, right? Again, majority of scholarships are from the colleges. So that's why it's really important. Like if you didn't know, there is a list of 70 colleges, 70 that meet full need. But scholarships could also be given to someone if Oprah Winfrey adopted somebody. Yeah, you don't have to demonstrate need, you just have to demonstrate a talent on there, and you don't have to pay them back. Now there's also work. Yeah, there's work study. Now some of you go like, wait, their job is school. Well, at the same time, keep in mind, there's something called work study where you work on campus. Because kind of think about it. If I'm a chemistry professor and I want you as my lab assistant, well, then you already have a connection with a professor and you're new to the campus, you're getting paid. And then on top of that, the research has shown that people who work on campus through work study tend to graduate in time for 4 years. Why? Well, what got me through college was working at Safeway. And it was a very rewarding job. It provided me a lot of opportunities, but there was a lot of times I worked till 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I had a test at 8 a.m. So that's not going to happen for a kid working on campus. So that's something just to know. And it's also that networking, that connection with the campus too. Now loans also, whether you have a lot of need or little, can get loans. And there's different type of loans. That's why we kind of encourage students to do scholarships. Like there's one due tomorrow called the Voice of Democracy, right? And why we want to stay away from loans. Well, if you have a credit card, you know why. Right? You want to have the least amount of debt. Now, it is part of financial aid. There are a few schools in the nation that are loan-free, like Brown University is an Ivy League school and others, but they're not many. On average, a student who has a loan in the nation is $28,000, not per year, over the 4 years. So when I see a student taking a $20,000 loan the first year, I'm like, no. There's a reason why so many people around the world come to the United States. We have so many diverse, different colleges. They just have to kind of open their minds about different college lists. So this is a time, regardless of what class your beautiful student is from, that they want to look at a very diverse list that has a lot of financial options and not loans. So where does this financial aid comes from? So the federal government does give loans, and they are the main ones where they give loans, but they also give grants for low-income families that, again, grants you have to pay back. Now, the state government gives also, two types of money. They give grants, which you have to pay back, and there's also something called the Middle Class Scholarship. We'll cover again. You don't have to pay that back, but you have to attend a California school, right? So if you go to Brown University in Rhode Island, right, that money doesn't follow you. But if you go to Brown University in Rhode Island, they meet full need, it may be okay. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, the colleges and universities themselves also give a lot of money. A lot of times students think, well, it's only Ivy League schools that meet full need. No, there's a school, St. Olaf in Minnesota, that meets full need. And it's not the hardest school to get into, nor the easiest, right? We've had other students who've gone to Clark University and Colgate University, University of Rochester. So there's a lot of schools that do give a lot of financial aid just because they've done so well and their alumni have supported them, right? But again, sometimes a lot of them are not in the Bay Area. So that's just something to kind of be mindful of. And then also organization. So if you work for a union, if you have an HR department, if you go to a synagogue, a church, a chapel, you want to ask them, do we offer scholarships? Please, please, please do that, right? Because, if someone wins a $500 scholarship, that's $500 more money in your pocket. And then, hey, if a freshman, sophomore apply for a scholarship, yes, they could apply for a scholarship like through fastweb.com, goingmerry.org. That looks great as awards. Now let's talk about this Cal Grant. Cal Grant, again, is for students who are applying from California who will be going to a California school. Now, most seniors right now won't know where they're going. Actually, nobody does, right? So they're just going to be applying. So there's two differences. And if you're not a senior, this is a parent or guardian, this is what you want to strive for. So there's the Cal Grant aid. So if they're a senior and they have a 3.0 GPA, which starts calculating 10th grade, that's unweighted, so they don't get no extra point for APs or honors, right? And they meet the family income. I'll show you with that page. They could get free tuition for a UC for 4 years, like UC Berkeley, UC Merced. You can get free tuition at a state school like San Francisco State, Cal Poly San Luis Obispo for 4 years, right? That's not a bad deal. Now you still have to take care of housing, which could be range from $11,000 to $16,000 to each year, right? So that's something to keep in mind, but free tuition, right? Now, for some students have a rockier time in school. It happens, right? Now, if you got a 2.0 GPA from sophomore year to the end of your junior year, you can still get a Cal Grant B. Now, the money is not as much. You still get about $1,600 the first year, but year 2, 3, and 4, you have $1,600 plus that free tuition for UC CSU. Now, you may be asking, well, what about those private schools like Pomona College is a private school, University of San Francisco, University of the Pacific? Yes, you could get some free money, but that's about around $10,000, right? And that changes that amount every year. That's why you vote, people. Whether you like politics or not, it affects you. So please know that your state legislators vote on this every year. So how do I know if I demonstrate need? So this gets voted on every year. So right here, what they're going to be looking at is pretty much how much is the family income. Now, who's independent student? Don't make the same mistake I did. I was like, my parents, God love them. I have eternal unconditional love. Always will want that. But they literally have told me, oh, after high school, you're paying for everything. And they were fair for me and my sisters knew it ahead of time. So I figured, oh, I'm independent. I'm paying for everything. No, 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 that's not the definition for the government. Independent means that either you are a ward of the court, right? So the government is your parent on there, right? Or if a student's homeless, you have a child, wait to your 30s, please, right? Or you've served in the military, or you're in graduate school, right? So you got your bachelor's, now you're going for your master's. That's an independent student. So for the most part, the majority of our families going to be in a dependent, the student be dependent. They look at your family size, or AKA household size, who lives in your house that you support. So yeah, if you're giving, your family's giving more half support to support grandpa and Uncle Sam, yeah, that's part of your household, right? And then they're going to look at how much you make. So Cal Grant B is lower and Cal Grant C is a higher income. And yeah, a student could qualify for both, right? But you've got to meet that income criteria to meet that Cal Grant. And keep in mind, during the Q&A, we can always go back to these slides if there's other questions too. So what are some forms you have to fill for the Cal Grant? So one, during the senior year of your student, starting October 1st, and we recommend to apply by Halloween. Why? So that you don't miss any deadlines. But if you could make sure as soon as possible, that'd be great. So you fill out the FAFSA or the California Dream Act. That's what they mean by My Student App. So this is the California Dream Act, different image they have there for our wonderful dreamers. You have to do that first. The first line has to be a California school, so they know, okay, I'm going to take this federal form or the California Dream Act to look for the Cal Grant. And here's the easy part. SI has already turned in all the seniors' Cal Grant GPA verification. So your hardworking college counselors already submitted those GPAs on there. If you are a parent who is have someone who's a sophomore, junior, like, but they got that grade, that D. Well, if they go and make up that course, right? They go make up that course, guess what? They'll take the higher grade. Just make sure that they do it before senior year. And then also, though you don't need to do the CSS Profile, which is an additional financial aid form that over 400 colleges require, you just want to make sure you do that. You'll hear a lot of promotion, like make sure you do your FAFSA, California Dream Act, the Cal Grant, but don't forget the CSS Profile. One of my beautiful sons went to another school, and a kid was giving me a tour, and then I said, oh, what schools you're applying to? And then she said Pixar College, which is down in Southern California, which also meets full need. And I said, oh, so great, are you filling out the CSS Profile? She goes, what's that? I go, oh, well, do you need to apply for financial aid? Oh yeah, she said. And I was like, I literally like, give me a piece of paper and pen. You need to do this. If you miss one step, you miss money. If you miss one step, you miss money. And you don't want to miss a deadline. That's why we recommend submitting as soon as possible, or the month of October, right? If you do a little bit later, that's totally fine. But right, so because if you make a mistake, we are here to support you, not only in the Magis program, but also all our wonderful college counselors as well too. Now, if you don't qualify for the Cal Grant, this is something called the Middle Class Scholarship. You could only get this for the UCs and CSUs. Yes, I have seen it. How they are selected? Well, they look at if you make up to $184,000. So if you make $200,000, it's not going to happen, right? And you have to understand too, why are these amounts so low? It's so expensive in the Bay Area. You're right. But where my stepdaughter lives in Yucca Valley, boy, I could get a pretty good house for $100,000. I mean, I'm talking about a couple of bedrooms, right? So they're looking at the average cost in the state. So that's something that they're looking at. Again, all you have to do is be a U.S. citizen, permanent resident, or AB 540, which is also another way of saying our dreamers who've been in a California high school for 3 years, and a California resident, right? So meaning that you show residency in California for 5 years, and you get this annually, okay? So now, how do you apply for the FAFSA form? So one of the things is for FAFSA or also the California Dream Act, which they put here, My Student Aid app, you're gonna make sure you fill out those forms. So every October 1st, those applications come out. And then through the federal government, like I said, you get the federal Pell Grant. Now remember, the amount you could get is $639 to $6,345. And those are usually geared up to are low income. And remember, these are federal guidelines of what's low income, right? And then here, on here that the college can, the federal government can decide if you have loans, and then the college themselves can give you grants. And then there's also more scholarships you can apply, whether through the school or also outside organization. So some basic tips: you want to file early. I don't know why that happened, but I'll tell you the tips. You want to apply early. You want to make sure that when you do the FAFSA, there's this thing called the Irs Data Retrieval. There's another slide we'll show you that, where they collect your information from the IRS to put it in there. And don't worry if you're a senior parent, you're like, I didn't file taxes yet. They look at what's called prior. They're going to look at 2019. They're going to look at 2019. And they may bring up some questions like, wait, 2019, but my income was totally different. We'll get to that. So these are all the different ways, right? You could do apply for financial aid through your phone, through the iPad, a desktop, right? You could also, students can go follow up their information on there, right? So they try to make it more accessible. Also, this is a great website. If you want to go ahead, even if you are a sophomore parent, and go to My College Scorecard, that's how you can find out graduation rate of a school, what's the average debt, average salary. There's a thing that I think is so important called return on investment. When your beautiful child has a bachelor's degree, you want to make sure they got a job that pays the bills, right? So that's something that's really, really important to keep that in mind. So what are the beginning steps? Now, anyone can do this. Now, if you're a freshman parent, you don't have to do it now, but you could create an FSA ID. Now, there are some veteran, beautiful parents out there. I see you. I see you. If you have an FSA ID, that stays with you for life. So if I've done it for one of my kids, I have an FSA ID for all my kids. Okay. So only one parent needs to do that. It doesn't have to be multiple. And then, but the student's going to create one. But here's a key thing, students. Do not use your SI email. Do not use your school email. Why? Because you're not going to have that forever, but you have your FSA ID forever. So please make sure to have a private one that you use. So important. And then again, here's this thing, the Irs Data Retrieval. So basically, you're going to, when you do your FAFSA form, you're going to make sure to put in the name exactly as it's written, exactly the street. Like, you really want to have that 2019 1040 tax forms. Students, if you don't know what a 1040 is, look it up. It is important to have financial literacy. And you want to write down exactly what it is. Because if you don't have the FAFSA, the federal program, talk to the other federal program, which is the IRS, then you may get audited by the colleges to verify. So it's really, 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 so if you see, it reduces the likelihood of students being selected for verification, right? It's an ugly word, but it's something that can happen. So what do you need? If a student has a driver's license, drive safely, don't text and drive. Have that driver's license number, it's not required. If a student is a permanent resident, get that registration number, you will need that. So security card numbers, now again, that's just for the FAFSA. Now, if you are a US citizen, but your beautiful parents are undocumented, they do not need a social security number. You would just add all zeros. Again, if the student is a citizen or permanent resident, they could fill out the FAFSA. And then for the parent section, you would just put all zeros for the social security. But again, if the student is undocumented or DACA, they would do the California DREAM Act. And then for those of you who don't know, I am very blessed to be also one of the Dreamer liaisons at SI. So I'm also available to providing more support and resources on that. So again, you want to have those W-2 forms 2019, 1099s. Students, that's if you're doing like, you know, if I drive Uber, if I do some side gigs on the side, your tax forms, even not yet completed, yes. Records of untaxed income, right? That's talking about Social Security benefits, child support you may receive. Current bank statements. The reason why it's current, they're not going to ask for 2019 because you have to report what you've had that day. If you have a business, don't worry. If it's a small business, don't trip yet. And then also any other type of documentation forms. So when you start, you want to log in, make sure the website looks like this, Federal Student Aid, right? There are scammers, and look here. Espanol, yes, we need more languages. And counselors across the nation has been asking for it. I'll be honest, we've been asking for it being bilingual for 20 years. Hopefully it won't take another 20. So it doesn't matter who starts this application, whether it's the student or the parent. I just recommend when you start, finish your portion, right? So have a good day, no distractions. Maybe the day on November 2nd when voting is, or when there's application deadlines, maybe that's not the time to really do that, but make sure that one person starts, and whoever doesn't start it, don't worry, you'll need to sign it at the very end. You will ask for a save key. So a lot of times I tell students, try to use a very unique password and a save key. Something like if someone wakes up in the middle of the night, what's your save key? Okay, it's blank, 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 right? It's just a 4-digit number. Maybe it is going to be your PIN number. Write it somewhere that is safe and secure, right? Google Keep is something on Gmail. It's free. They can write all that information. So this is all the different information they would ask. And we've noticed a lot of our families being really successful filling out the FAFSA form, but we're just going to highlight certain parts of the information that's important not to overlook. So again, if you are undocumented, please know that you still are eligible for Cal Grant money, state aid, and for colleges. You also can still apply for out-of-state colleges. There's Dartmouth College in New Hampshire, right? It's not an urban city, and guess what? They provide a lot of support for their undocumented students. So there's a lot of options and opportunities. So don't assume that, and you could reach out to me to give you more information. I could also work with your college counselor about that as well. Now here, students make a lot of mistake here about student education system. Remember, they have not earned their bachelor's degree. That's what they're aspiring to. They will earn their diploma. They'll get their first degree. They'll put never attended college, but I do know some of our Magis students know what it means to do the more. Some of them have taken some college courses, and it's in Mr. White's dual enrollment course. So you can say some college, but the key word is first year, because if you don't put first year, they're going to miss out on some other free of money opportunities. Now here for the parent information, they're asking what is completed, right? I do know we have some wonderful parents who got a degree outside of this country. So it's not just US, it's anywhere in the country, but it has to be completed. And when they say complete, they don't mean an associate's degree, they mean a bachelor's degree, right? So you want to put that level on there. And then if there is a parent that you don't know, just put unknown, right? And then do know there is a lot of financial support and resource also for foster youth as well. Okay, when you are listing your schools, the most important thing to know is a lot of students go, wait, I'm applying to more than 10 schools. I'm applying to 11. Oh my God, what to do? Well, don't panic. That just means you have to organize it, meaning one, the first school must be a California school. Why? Well, if you want that Cal Grant money, that's how they find your application. So make sure it's not school number 10, school number 9. Make sure you have at least that one California school every time you submit. And then the rest of the schools you're going to list is based on who has the earliest deadline. Now at SI, they will ask for students to fill out what's called a CAP form, a piece of paper, an agreement form that you sign with your student, with their college counselor, saying, hey, this is where I'm applying. These are the deadlines, and the financial aid will pull out that copy and then check those deadlines and then do it as an order. Put it on the fridge, create a spreadsheet, right? And on the application, you can reorder it. And then once it gets told you get processed, you could take those other 9 schools. Why did I say 9? Because the first we want to keep that California school on there. It doesn't matter which one, as long as it's a California 4-year school where you get a bachelor's degree. And then add your other schools, right? So you want to do the one that's the earliest deadline to the latest. And this is what it looks like, right? You don't need it. They may ask for a code. You can put it in by name. The key thing to make sure is that, like, for example, University of California, Riverside has a graduate program, actually has a medical school. There's a way you go to medical school for free over there at UC Riverside, FYI. And you want to make sure it's the undergraduate program. So this is not an application to rush. I have a family says, oh, this took me 20 minutes. Okay, that's fine, but maybe make it 25 just to play it safe. So again, for listing, first one needs to be a California school based on the deadlines. Check, even if it's in-state or out-of-state. Write down this number now. If you have a question at any time about your financial aid form, 1-800, the number 4, FED, F-E-D-A, 433-3243. Your tax dollars are paying for them to help you. Now, if you're filling out the California Dream Act, they can't help you there. That's the California state, but that's for the federal free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA form. Do also know the UC CSU. So let's say if you're, again, like if I'm applying to UC Riverside, UC Merced, UC Irvine, UC Berkeley, I need write each school, right? Each CSU that you are applying to. Okay, I do recommend for students to put in on campus, even if like you put down San Francisco, well, I'm gonna live it up. Well, what if something changes? This way it gives you the maximum amount, and then later on you could go and change that, right? It's a lot easier if you know what's the one school, right? So just put on campus. Yes, parents and guardians, you need to let go of those wonderful 18-year-olds. It's hard, right? My oldest is 21, right? And then my youngest is 8, and I got 4 total. But don't worry, true love, they come back. I still talk to my mom all the time, okay? And then here you just want to make sure that you check the box of which school that you want on there. Now, here's another thing is I kind of told you my story about dependency status. So again, you are only independent if you meet these categories. Graduate student, married, wait, you can get married 30, it's not worth it, right? 24 as of December 31st, right? Do not emancipate your child. Okay, so these are the categories. So for most of the students, you are very lucky to be dependent, but until you say yes to one of these, you will always need your parents' information. Okay, so who is a parent? Well, that parent's a biological or adopted, legally adopted, right? Parent, right? That includes same-sex parents, including unmarried parents living together. So that's something that is new. Just to let you know of the definition of that, that's a change that's happened. In case parents are divorced or separated, or parents who don't live together. So we do have parents who are live together but are unmarried, they still require both parents to do that. But if you are in one of these situations, right, that means only one of the parents will fill it out, right? If they're divorced, separated, or one is deceased. But if you are remarried parent, and your child spends more than those last 12 months with you, then you have to include either your married partner on there or your domestic partner on the agreement. Okay, now who is not the parent? So foster parents are not, legal guardians, like my auntie's always taking care of me, or my uncle, grandparents, right? And so that means that that student should be awarded the court. There are some students I still remember my student, I still talk to the student today where they never went through the court system and grandparents raised them and their parents were not around. So we had to do special circumstances for him because he still was required by the federal government laws. And this was also for California Dream Act for our dreamers to report the parents' information, even though he couldn't obtain it. Right, so that's something that it's a unique situation, but these rules are strict. And now this one big mistake that a lot of people make, household size. What is a household size? Everyone thinks, okay, let's go look at my tax form. Where am I exempt? Well, no, where are my exemptions, I mean? It's household. So the student, the parent, other dependent children, right? That's not the one that's paying you rent, has their own car, et cetera, right? But that you're giving half of their support. And, right, regardless of where they live, other people, if they now live with the parents and will continue to do so through 21 through 22, and the parents provide half of their support. So there was a time that my husband's nephew and his child stayed with us, right? So if they stayed with us during this time period, even though I don't claim them on taxes, they will be part of my household size. So instead of 6, it would be 8, even though they're not on that tax form. Here also just showing you like who doesn't need to do the Irs data retrieval. So who can't use this is people who have these categories. One of the things is married taxpayer who filed head of household. That happens a lot. You change your marital status since the end of the tax year. parents who do not have a Social Security number, victims of identity theft. And here's the thing is, you can still self-report your tax information, but only do it if you're one of these, you have to. And just be prepared to do verification. We get about a good 10% or more of our students who get verification require. It's a headache, but we, myself and their college counselors will work them through it. The main thing is not wait to the last minute. So here, this is what it looks like when it tells you they're going to the IRS. So do not skip this part. You want to proceed to the IRS data unless like I said, like if I don't have a Social Security number, then I'll put that in there. And then this is just other information they want to know, like, are you filling out 1040? I think instead of looking at this, just look at your tax forms. Usually if your accountant's doing or you're doing yourself, you should staple it all and then you just flip in the top page, is there Schedule 1? Now I know there's some beautiful students filling out the tax forms for their parents. Love you, hear you. I still help file my parents' taxes for them too. So again, you just want to look on the top of the Schedule 1. And again, myself and the college counselor is there to help you. Now, here's something important. During the pandemic, there's been a lot of changes in a lot of people's lives. And there is a question here that says, is your parents, and it can be one parent or both, a dislocated worker? What does that mean? I lost my job, got laid off, receiving unemployment benefits, self-employed but is unemployed due to economic conditions, spouse of an active duty member as a displaced homemaker. What does that mean is like if I've never worked, and then I'm no longer living with my partner, it's kind of hard if you don't have a resume, and your resume is amazing, being a mother, being a partner, and then now you have to find a job, right? So if you meet one of those categories, please make sure yes. You could put don't know, but if you fit one of those, you have every right to put yes. So what is this federal benefit? So a lot of times I tell my students, because every question I'm putting on here, they'll ask the student and the parent. Again, these are the same questions on the California Dream Act as well. So if you don't receive this money, like if I give you $1,000 every month, you will know my name. So if these people are not giving you money, you kind of know that that's not happening, right? So just you put none of the above or check those that apply to you. And what they do that is just they're looking for need. Now, unless you are a parent who has a kid in college, you're going to you may fill out this information, right? Like if you're getting a tax credit, yes, you get tax credit after you start paying for college. Yes, that's good. Or if your student has a scholarship, again, if the student receives the money, you put in the student section, the parent's getting the credit, you put in the parent section. Or you may have 0 in there, okay? Parents untaxed, what's untaxed, right? So this is where you put in the retirement, like the payments that you put in the retirement, right? Not how much the value of the retirement is, right? So if I have a $200,000 retirement fund, but I put down $2,000 a month, right? I'm going to put that amount for that $2,000 a month times 12, which would be $24,000, not the $200,000 value. Okay, so that you will never get penalized for your whole retirement. You'll only get, they just may look and see how much you're contributing to those retirement funds. And then also if you receive any child support as well. So here, now they're going to ask this question to the parent and the student, same one. They're going to ask the day you submit, yes, you got to go in your bank, go on your phone, says, okay, how much is my balance? They really want you to do that. Now this is different than this, right? Which is your net worth of investments. Now that's, if you're lucky enough to own a home, congrats, do not include your home. But if you have a second home, like that place in Tahoe or another rental property, you got to put that value, like if you sold it today, minus the mortgage and everything, what is that value? Or maybe you have a certificate of deposit, knows a CD or special funds, or you're like, I don't know what it's called. Then go onto your phone, look at your last statements, right? Everyone gets quarterly statements, whether you have stocks or bonds, right? And then, and so if the money's not around, then it's 0. But if you do have it, you do need to put the net worth the day you submit this application. Now here, the good thing is for those individuals who own business, right, that you have to have more than 100 employees, right? So, so just remember that. So only you'll need to report that. And then once you submit it, this is what it looks like, right? But that doesn't mean it's been processed. Think of it like a laundry bag. Here's all my information in the laundry bag. You drop it off at the laundromat. That doesn't mean someone went through it. It's in line. So until they say, sent you an email, and especially to the student, that it got processed, that means they empty the laundry bag, empty all this information to the colleges, and then you can start sending it to the other schools. So this is the part you want to print out to save or save on your computer. EFC, you'll find out how much they are expecting you to pay. So like for this example, you see the 002592. So for this family, that's what all those schools are going to be told. Well, this family can pay $2,592. So you're like, great. Well, but did your child apply to a school that they have a good chance of getting into that meets that full need? So that's the thing is that's important to do. And during Q&A, I could show you that net price calculator as well. Also, I'll let you know right away if you're eligible for Pell Grant. So that's the federal money, can go to any college in the US, and then how much those loans. One of the great loans is the subsidized loan because the government will pay for it while you're in school. Yes. And then I'll also show you the list of schools that received the information. Okay. All right. So let's talk about special circumstances. So you can see COVID-19 is a natural disaster. So if there's been any income loss or assets, death or serious illness, you know, that's something that's unusual. They don't ask you for medical expenses. They don't ask you what is your income 2020. So if there's been any dramatic changes, here's the thing you want to do. Your student or you, the parent or guardian, you want to contact each of the financial aid offices and to say, I have a special circumstances. How do I write this notice? And then listen, if you're in my household, get over it, students. You're going to write those forms sometimes for some of your parents, and that's okay. It pays off in the end. It pays off in the end, all that hard work you do. Trust me, me and my sister could verify. I have a lot of older sisters. And so that's something that is really important. So this is not a time to let your pride get in the way. It's the time to share this information out there. You don't want to wait and don't assume. So for example, one UC may say to do it this way, and another UC may say, we won't look at it till a later date. So that's why you want to start early on this right away. Very, very important. And then if you are a junior parent, they're going to look at your 2020 tax forms, sophomore, 21, etc. All right, so again, here's the website. You do want to print and save all this. Now the FAFSA will go to every college, community, public, private, but don't forget those 400 colleges that need the CSS profile, who will ask for the medical expenses, who will ask how much you pay for the tuition, the uniforms, the sports gear, the books. So that's good. The FAFSA won't ask you that, right? And why? Well, that's what our senators in Congress, individuals decided on, right? So here, big mistakes, legal guardians filling it out, right? Putting in the wrong status, the household we talked about, number of kids in college, right? Like there's twins, well, that means there's 2 in college, right? So remember, you put as many in college that you, the parent, is supporting. And then here, you're also make sure not to get confused between I'm filling out the student or the parent section. So always make sure, look on the top, this is a student, parent, date of birth. And also if you were naturalized in this country, that means like you immigrated here and say, yes, and you're a US citizen. What a great ceremony to be part of. That was just so great when I saw my sister and my parents do that. Want to make sure that the Social Security Administration knows that you're a U.S. citizen. Yes, this is our government. So for a long time, they haven't communicated well. So you do want to schedule an appointment to make sure that if you are a naturalized citizen, they have that in the system. Also, not listing only one college. You still need to go to all colleges, not using the Irs Data Retrieval. So if you can use it, you need to do it. Putting the wrong information of the asset, sometimes some people put too much or too little. Also, some of them people put on their retirement or their home. No, no, no. And then 529 plans is a fund that you would only report the value if it's in your parents' name. But if it's in a grandparent's or aunt's name, you only put if you received it. So for our high school students, usually most people don't use the 529 plan, but it is something that's an option. You want to make sure you have the correct name on your social security number. And if you're using the California Dream Act, correct name that matches your birth certificate, date of birth. If you are a male, you have to, male students have to register with Selective Services. Yes, AKA the draft. It's the law, right? You cannot get financial aid unless they register. So you could say, please register me. So that's something that is required. In order to get the Cal grant, you'll have that. So remember, we already submitted, you just have to do the FAFSA. Again, here's that important number. And then there's a printout form of your application. Most people don't print this out, they just look at it online, but this is basically everything that we just kind of went over. And then let's just say you get that verification. Now, just to let you know, if you do the CSS profile, so Pomona, Santa Clara, Harvard, Stanford, Dartmouth, McAllister College, these are all schools that meet full need. We haven't heard of it. Well, they meet full need, look it up, it's really important. This is what type of documentation they'll ask for, right? W-2, 1099s. And here's the thing that's good to know about the CSS profile. Here, they're going to ask for they will ask for your net worth of your home. Not FAFSA, but CSS profile. And they'll also ask for any assets like, savings or taken for any of the siblings who are under 19. Why? Because in their eyes, they don't need that money, right? So that's something that could be used. Remember, colleges are looking at what you need, not what you want. So kind of show you, so remember, FAFSA, all colleges need it, but the majority of schools that meet full need the FAFSA and the CSS profile. Now, if you are undocumented applying to out-of-state school, you just need you can just fill out the FAFSA form for those schools. And if they don't offer the FAFSA profile, then you just have to contact the financial aid office how to process that. So here you see, right, that there's a lot more questions here. It's going to take a few more hours. Here, they kind of like ignore certain assets questions, but CSS profile doesn't make any assumptions. They also will ask you like, hey, how much will a student contribute to college? Yes, they will ask them. So students are going to need to know that information. And here's the part is if a parent is divorced or separate, they still need to fill out the CSS profile. Now, if the other parent is not around, there is a waiver form that you could work with myself or your college counselor how to fill that out. All right, so let's look at Cal Grant. So students, as soon as you turn your FAFSA form, our portion is done. You go to this website, take a screenshot of it or take a photo of from your phone. You want to go to mygrantinfo.csac.ca.gov just to make sure everything's connected. It has happened that twins get mixed up. Somebody else has your information. Maybe our Power School information is wrong, that your parents or guardians didn't update that. So it's really important to check that. You students, if you do go to California school and get the Cal Grant, you have to go into that system to confirm your graduation date. It is your responsibility if you want that money to do that. Okay, so again, summary, the key thing is filling it out early, not forgetting the CSS profile like on there, and ask questions. Ask, and we'll get to the question part in a minute. The other thing is keeping your financial aid. I still know, I don't see all my alumni, but I still can tell you the name of the students, which I won't say, from even last century, who basically either that didn't go back to school because one, they forgot to do the financial aid form. Yes, you have to apply for financial aid every year. Or two, their GPA went so low that they lost the scholarship and other information. Now you may say, oh, 2.0, do you know what my kid's GPA is? Yeah, but do you know how college is? Majority of the time of college is more social than work-wise, which is a healthy development of it, right? I mean, more than ever, we understand how important of socially and connecting and networking, but having that discipline when family is away, that doesn't mean you go move into them with their dorms, but we all struggle, we all have hiccups. It doesn't happen to the majority of our students, but it happens to some. So that's why it's really so important to check in with a student, make sure to ask about their grades, looking at it, give them some leeway. Like I have a freshman in college and I haven't asked for their grades, says, how's it going? But you know I'm gonna be asking soon, right? Because we wanna make sure that they don't miss out on an opportunity, because sometimes shame gets in there, time gets out of the way, life happens. So you wanna make sure. You want to look at this right now. These are phone numbers, really important. So here is, if you have any information how to fill out the FAFSA form, here, if you can create an FSA ID number, remember you just need two, one for the student, one for the parent. You can also do email, but if you have time, just put it on speakerphone, wash some dishes, do some work. They're there to help you. All right. And that's our presentation. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stop sharing so I can see your beautiful faces. And then give me a moment. I'm going to give you guys the opportunity in a moment to unmute yourself. But please, please, please feel free to unmute yourself to ask any questions. If you don't feel comfortable to unmute yourself, you can also go in the chat room. But this time is for you.
Hi, Anna Maria. I have a question.
Hello.
You spoke on where I'm looking at my notes, where it says something about how you have to state how much you can pay for college. Is that calculated for you? How do we as parents decide and calculate that number ourselves? Can you just speak more on that? I really need to know what that's about.
No. It's a great question. If my dad was here, he says, put zero. It's like, don't want to put an amount in there. So they're really just asking like, hey, if you can pay some amount, what can you do? And so a lot of times I ask family, I'll just ask them like, well, how much are you paying for SI right now? Right. So and I go, well, is it comfortable what you're doing? And comfortable means like, I'm not, well, no one's going to the spa this time, but like, I'm not going to spa, or I'm going to Starbucks 5 times a day. But, but if it's like, it's hard, like I have to work extra hours just to make means, well, then put less, right? That's fine. Like be honest about it. I wouldn't overestimate it, but just be really honest. And so use how much you pay at SI as a guide. If it's okay what you're doing now, then report that amount. But remember, they're going to ask your beautiful student the same question. Why? Because it's not unusual for students to work. It's expected. That's why they have the work-study program. But if they're like, because my first year of school, well, maybe I can get a job in the summer, but hey, it's COVID-19. I don't know. Like I had a kid that, I have one kid who is a frontline worker. He's comfortable doing that. I have another one's like, oh no, I'm not getting out of my bubble. So they're going to say different responses about what they can contribute, and that's okay, right? So put out there what you can do versus what you want to do, and you're not going to get judged. I think the only thing you get judged is like, well, if that student has $20,000 in their savings account and they say, oh, I can only pay $100. Well, they're going to look, well, hey, you the student, not you the parent, you have $20,000. You have no kids. Why is it only $100 you're willing to pay? So that's where the college will go, huh? So does that answer that question?
Yeah, I get that part of the answer, but you did say something about a net price calculator. What is that?
Okay, so if you don't mind, can we do a net price calculator, right? So, and let me explain what it is and show you how to do it. And we've shown all our seniors how to do it, and juniors will get to know it. But guess what? If you're a freshman parent out there, you can start it. I did it for my kids starting my sophomore year because it's great information, it's scary information, but it's important information. So let me give you a little bit of history because a lot of people don't know about it. So during the Obama administration, President Obama's like, it's kind of hard to figure out what colleges to apply to if you don't know how much it's going to really cost you at the end of the day. And then it's too late, you can't put in other schools. So it is required by law for every accredited school to provide this net price calculator, meaning I could do a pretend financial aid form. So think about when you're applying to SI, University High School, Sacred Heart, you do a pretend financial aid form, and you could find out before you get accepted to the high school how much the school will actually cost you, meaning that net price before loans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, just show a really simple one with you guys on here. So bear with me. And okay, so literally what you could do is you could go to net price calculator, and I'm going to pick a school, Lake Forest College. It's a school outside of Chicago. It's not the hardest school to get into, but not the easiest school either. And I just want to just give you a variety. You can see it's been around for a while. And every school site is going to look a little bit different. So it's here, it's just talking about what they have, financial aid, they want to welcome you, and let's get started. Okay. And then you can shout out an amount, but if you don't shout anything, they're going to ask some questions. Now, some forms are a little bit longer. We use this one just because it's not as hard. So they're going to ask you, please enter how many college credits that you're planning on going to the school. Well, let's just say they're going to have 0, right? Most students don't have college credits. Now they're going to ask what GPA. So remember, even if Oprah Winfrey adopts me, let's say I'm a high school student, I can still get free money. So maybe I'll just put down like I have a 3.4 GPA, okay? And you can put the weighted GPA, by the way. Now here, let's just put no for test scores, because who knows when there's going to be another test scores, right? And then they just need asked to schedule an interview with the admission. This is a test optional school. Just to let you know, there are over 600 colleges that are test optional, even before COVID-19. And then here, do you plan to visit a school? If you said yes, like even a virtual tour, you could get a visit grant. Yeah, you get scholarship free money just for visiting the school. And because of COVID-19, that'll still be eligible because they're doing a lot of virtual tours, and that's open to everyone. So now with just that basic information, of course, they're going to want that contact information, right? But we're going to skip that right now. Colleges love it when you're on their mailing list. And then, why are they asking for my kid's age? Well, because they want to know, are you dependent or not? So when you put this information, you're going to put the age of your wonderful student when they are a senior, right? But even if they're not a senior. So I put 17, they're still dependent. They want to know what state they're from, because sometimes they get state aid, so they know Illinois. Here's that on campus, so living in the dorms. That's what on campus means. Now, I'm going to pretend I didn't do the FAFSA. There is a way for you to do the EFC. So I'm just going to continue that because some of you guys may have not done that. Now, this is something you have to be aware of. Since COVID-19, a lot of these financial aid forms are a little bit out to date. It's like, wait, where's 2019? As you know, for me and for you and for everyone, things have been a little bit hectic. But once you do this, you could, if you like what you see, you could always, yes, even if you are a freshman, sophomore, if you're a senior parent, contact financial aid like, hey, is this really the financial aid? Because it said 2018. So you can always have that conversation. Now here they ask, like, do your parents file the tax? So let's just say like, yes, they do file. And then I want to put income. So let's just put here, I'm going to take what numbers are here. So this one had 67,000. Again, assets is the home. So maybe I'll just put like $5,000 right there. Again, this is not including retirement. Let's say untaxed income, I'm going to say 0, not getting like Social Security, child support. How much did I pay? And so what were your parents' total taxes paid, right? You could leave it unknown. Like maybe I just pay like 2,000. This is what you pay on your tax form, not on your W-2, right? And just for this purposes, I'm going to say, no, I'm not married. How old is the oldest parent? Because the closer you are to retirement, the more you need money because you're not going to be working as long. So they do keep that in mind of the age of the parent. Now, every form they're going to ask, how much does the student make? Maybe a student did a summer job. Again, it would be that 2019 for seniors, right? 2020 for the juniors. What is your assets not including the home? Well, maybe the kid only has not $67,000, but maybe just $67, right? Taxes paid, they probably didn't file taxes. Now they want to know the household size, right? So let's just say there's 5 in the family. Maybe it's even less over there. And then how maybe in college? Well, let's just say 1. But I'll be honest, this number here, the total size in the household and how many college dictates how much your need. Your need goes up very high as well. We're almost there. So basically, this is what it looks. If they're saying it will cost $49,000. The room and board, meaning living on campus, is $10,000, right? So by the way, it's $60,000, right? And that it doesn't matter. It's $60,000 whether you're from Illinois or not, because remember, private school doesn't care about in-state or out-of-state tuition. That's only for public schools. That means they're funded by the government. Now they include books, personal expenses, so it's $61,000. Now they said this family this example family that they're probably, the government's going to probably say they could pay $3,723. So I'll get this free grant, free money from the federal government, and SOG is another free grant. I don't have to pay that back. Remember how I said the colleges and universities give the most money, right? So here, right, is $39,000. So what's the net price? That means this family has to pay $22,000, right? So what happens? Wait, what if you don't have the 22? Well, then there are loans that students could have, right? Which is about, they could get about $5,000. They do a work study, which is about $1,000 or $2,000. And here they give you the example. So that means if the student takes a loan, not parent loan, and the student does work study, then the cost could be down to, after self-help, is $14,000. Now, for some of you families, I'm like, well, that's too much. Well, then that's why we want to do these net price calculators to find those other schools. If you say, oh, that sounds great, then we want to look at those different schools. We want to look at what schools that you could get in that is affordable. And get in doesn't mean like, oh, you have to have this search engine. You're in that range, right? So on that program called SCORE, there's a scattergram you could kind of check. You just want to be in that range. And then also that it's affordable and your child would be happy there. Okay, so did I explain net price calculator? Did I give a okie dokie example there?
You sure did. Thanks so much for going through that. That was like my biggest revelation ever. But
no, I think that's the one thing for the net price calculator is that, and the government will say that, is the most underutilized tool. So the only people who should not be touching it is they're like, oh, I could pay $70,000 every year, no problem. So anyone who's like, I don't know how we're going to do this, or I'm curious how much, do the net price calculator. And guess what? Even Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, can do a net price calculator because he could get scholarship money. Yes, because that's what a scholarship is, right? So that is an option. So before your kid says, I'm done applying to college, do the net price calculator. I have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful family, and I have my stepdaughter too. And some folks didn't do a net price calculator, and it happens. Families are very unique and very wonderful. And then some people were surprised, and I'm like, well, I wasn't surprised, but you need to do ahead of time. And I will be honest, as a college counselor, it took me, it was hard for me doing the net price calc because like, really? Oh, come on, right? So it's hard, but there was schools and there are opportunities out there. You just need to make sure to have an honest conversation with your beautiful students saying, this is what our family could do. And please, please do not say, don't worry, honey, we'll figure it out. I tell your beautiful students, that's a red flag. That doesn't mean you won't get that unconditional love. That means that you may struggle. And remember, I've been doing this for over 26 years. I've seen those families fall apart because of that struggle, right? I am this is me, anti-parent loans. There's too many wonderful colleges and opportunities for students to go to for a parent to have an extra burden. We have a beautiful question in the chat. Feel free to bring more questions, whether it be chat or up or unmute yourself. But the question is, the net price is just an estimate of grants, et cetera. That's not what you actually get. Yeah, so it's a guide, right? You know, it's kind of like if you go to a car dealership. Hey, if I take those rims off and I don't want the sunroof, give me a ballpark number, right? And then, you know, if you're like, really that cheap? Then you go into the office, okay, well, tell me what the real amount is, right? So I'll be honest, as a parent, I didn't go like, oh, I'm the Magis College advisor at St. Ignatius, so I need to talk. I just said, I'm a parent of this beautiful child. I did a net price calculator. Is this an accurate number? Now, the net price calculator is a wonderful tool, but if you didn't catch my story, for those of you who have blended families, meaning 2 households, it's going to be a little bit more confusing. The net price calculator, there was not enough wisdom how to do that. So both households have to do the net price calculator. That doesn't mean you add those amounts. That means you do them both. Then you contact the financial aid office. And they'll either say, yes, this is how much we had. We had a Magis, like, yes, this is only the amount of money we will give you. No more, no less. We have some, well, it depends on who applies. We may give you more free money because the colleges sometimes give more money because they want that kid. Yes, that happens, right? So it's not very black and white, but it's a good guide, a very important guide. Other questions out there? So hello, so Pell Grant, Cal Grant, just need to fill out the form. Okay, so if you want just that Pell Grant money, you have to fill out the FAFSA form. Our California Dream Act for our dreamers cannot get the Pell Grant. Why? California Dream Act, thus California, is only been established in California, right? But for everybody else, the FAFSA form, you could fill out the Pell Grant. And yeah, we already did the work for the Cal Grant for you. The only thing you need to make sure are 3 things. 1, every time you turn in the FAFSA form, did you put that California school in the first line? California school, for I can't tell you how many people forget that. California school in the first line, okay? Number 2, go to that website. You can also go to webgrants.org or just tell your, what did Ms. Vaccaro say again? You know, and they go online to check their Cal Grant. And then 3, if you don't see it on there, that doesn't mean we didn't put it in, that maybe the name is incorrect or our address on PowerSchool. Because what we did is we just took everything on PowerSchool, right? No social security, just your name and date of birth and address. And they're comparing that to FAFSA and they're going to look for that. And that's all. That's all you need to do and to apply on time. Now, what about middle class scholarship? Yeah, middle class scholarship. So they do get offered. The California state government select them. So the UCs and the state schools do it. So how do I get it? Same way. So do the FAFSA, or for our dreamers, California Dream Act, and just double check the Cal Grant, or known also the GPA verification that SI already filled out, right? And then make sure you apply to UC and CSU. And if you get accepted one of those, then those schools can look. But remember the cap, right? The $184,000. So if you exceed that, you won't get that amount. If you're like, it needs to be higher, talk to your legislators. And the middle class scholarship has been around. So it wasn't there forever. What ended up happening is families are like, I can't qualify for Cal Grant, but I still need money. So they create this middle class scholarship. And by the way, just want to give you some historical context. The UC system has saved some money where to meet those needs. They don't meet 100% need, but remember, if you get the Cal Grant, or even if you just get the middle class scholarship, there's still, you know, UCs are over $30,000. That's still a lot of money, right? And just because you get great financial aid at SI, that doesn't guarantee it's going to be the same, because everyone invests in students differently. So please make sure if your student is eligible for a UC, there's some small ones like UC Merced, some if they want to go far away, you know, like UC Riverside, but do make sure you put UCs. The CSUs are great schools. I'm a CSU product. I love the CSUs, but it is a struggle for our students for getting that need filled out for the housing. Okay, I see another beautiful question. Is the Fafsa Helpline 24/7 by chance? No, but they do have a lot of long hours. So it's East Coast time. So like there's been times like at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'll call them. As they get closer, they are open on Saturdays though. So yeah, so on Saturdays, so they are available during that time. So yeah, so just give them a call. I have not memorized it. I could look it up if necessary, but they are open on Saturdays. And I mean, I've been able to call them like at 6 a.m. to about like 4 p.m. You know, in the past. So just be patient, but they will answer your question on there, right? It's kind of like me calling your cell phone service, right? It takes a while. Okay, I have another question, right? So, and feel free to send questions privately. I will not say the names either too, okay? So feel free to do that. So if you have a net worth asset of $184,000, does that include money in retirement? I love that question because the answer is no. So if you have $1 million in your retirement, no, they are not going to look at it. Two things to know. On the FAFSA form, they will not ask for your retirement amount, but the CSS profile does. And then you may go, great, so the schools that meet full needs could ask. No, they ask it so that you don't fill it out incorrectly and assume it's an asset. So, right, so they're trying to make sure you're subtracting it from there. So again, to clarify, because I see some people wrinkling their eyebrows, like, what did she say? So no problem. I have no.
Safe driving mode. I don't want to face safe driving mode, dude. What happened?
So if you can unmute yourself, I would greatly appreciate it because I'm loud, but I don't know if I'm that loud. So if you, so you're going to put your income, you're going to put your check and savings, right? So all application forms will ask that. And then the FAFSA form, right? The FAFSA form is going to ask how much you contribute towards your retirement, how much you give every year, right? Like that's box 12 or 14 on the W-2 form. Don't quote me, but it's one of those boxes, right? But the CSS profile is going to ask you what the value, how much you have in your retirement. They're only asking that so that you don't put it in your mutual fund account, the stocks, right? Because $1 million, you can't touch your retirement, right? Like, no, don't touch that retirement. Do not touch your retirement. Very important, right? So don't touch that. So that's why the CSS Pro, they ask it, but not to use it, right? So they just do that because sometimes so many families make mistakes. And I'm happy to repeat that. But again, an asset is not the retirement amount. An asset is not the retirement. That's like a second home, that's certificate of deposits, if there's a special trust fund. So those are forms of assets. Other questions? Oh, I love them. Does the EFC, which stands for the estimated family contribution that the federal government establishes, may be different for those private schools that need a CSS profile, need to be entered for each school or just one? No, that's a beauty. You don't enter it. Guess what? The federal government figures it out. Now, you may say, well, wait, but you just showed me a net price calculator that just asked that. Well, maybe you did the FAFSA form already, like, because I do know there's some families out there who did it. And they're like, hey, who are those 70 schools? Like, that's something someone remind me, I'll show you the list of the 70 schools. You're like, well, I want to see what that is. So it just helps expedite the net price calculator, right? But it's the federal government who does that. You could go type in, and I'll put it on the chat for everyone. If you Google FAFSA forecaster, they changed the website, but if you Google that, you could get an estimated EFC. Now remember, the government's telling all those schools that only accept the FAFSA, right? So that's San Francisco State, USF, Holy Names University, University of San Diego. Those are the schools that tend to not meet full need. The only exception of that school is like a school like Soka University in Southern California. Magis has visited. It's like a mansion. Don't believe me? I'll type it in there. Just Google Soka and use it. When I say something, I don't exaggerate. But those schools, they'll get that amount and they'll take that into consideration. but that doesn't mean they'll meet that full need, right? Remember, there's over, there's almost 1,000 four-year colleges out there, but only about 70 of them meet full need. But that doesn't mean that they won't give you a lot of financial aid, right? We have a lot of students who've gone to UCs, a lot of schools in California, Washington, that done well. All right, other questions, or if I wasn't clear, any other questions that I need to clarify for our wonderful families?
You talked about making sure the California school is first when you list them, but if you are applying to more than 10, I get that you have to submit and then go back and add more. When you go back the second time to add more, does the California school still needs to be on top then too, or it doesn't apply?
You keep those questions coming because they're perfect questions, or most people make mistakes. So yeah, so again, remember the FAFSA form, which is different from the CSS profile, and let's talk about submission in a moment after I answer that question. The FAFSA form only allows 10 schools. And you're like, just 10? It used to be 6. So just 10 schools. They don't want to make it 20 where kids think, oh, I have to apply to 20. So 10 schools, remember each UC. And yeah, so school number 1 needs to be a California school. So let's say I apply to 12, I take away those other 9, keep that California school, and then add those other colleges. So yes, every time you submit a FAFSA form, or right, you want to make sure it's a California school, because you don't know if they're going to get batch 1, batch 2, or batch 3 for that California. And it's a headache talking to the government. Can you find my form? Now, I will say they will help you. And the California State Aid Commission, I would say there's some really loving people who work there. We actually have a podcast interview. For those you don't know, if you just love hearing my voice, you can have me 24/7. There's a podcast interview from the California State Aid Commission just talking about financial aid. So I do a lot of interviews, and there is one there. We also have an interview from the Immigration Risings for undocumented families as well too. So especially for undocumented students, right? So do know that there are those podcasts. So I did want to say, I want to talk about processing. So when you submit the FAFSA, remember you're going to have to do it for that first 10 colleges, and then whatever remaining. Again, first school for each one is a California school. But for CSS Profile, you could submit 1 today and then 2 tomorrow, or you can submit all your colleges. So I keep on mentioning the CSS Profile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, please keep on putting the questions. I did see that question there, but I have a feeling I'm going to forget. And I know people are getting tired. And I'm not ending this yet. So keep putting those questions in there. But I want to show you what the CSS Profile looks like. So let me share my screen, because I do not want you guys to walk away today and say, wait, we never saw what the CSS Profile is. So I'm going to show you. So if you just go to cssprofile.org, right? Here it is. And yes, it's run by the College Board, right? And I don't know how much you're going to see. They're still doing maintenance. Mamma mia. I had a beautiful student who was doing that. But you want to make sure you sign in fall 2021. You're going to use your students' login, the same thing they use for SAT, or have students do that. Now, there are waivers if you meet the income criteria, if they register for a test, even though they didn't take it last year. If they got an SAT fee waiver, that will also waive the fee. This is not a free service because the colleges pay the colleges to do it. So, but also this shows you here more about fee waivers. Here's a guidebook, how to fill it out. I'm not opening it up because look how many kilobytes, 111. Here's a non-custodial parent. So like if there's a parent who's deceased, or I don't know where parent number 2 is, right? That's something you fill out. But who are the schools that want it? Well, let's look. Now, I will say this, not all the schools on this list, but these schools, right? They provide significant financial aid, or almost meet 100% need, right? And look how many schools are out there. So if your beautiful student does not have some of these schools on their list, then I'm just going to ask you one favor. Please, please, please do the net price calculator. If your kid is only applying to schools that only are requiring the FAFSA form, make sure you put in a school that you know, like, hey, they're going to get in, no problem. Do the net price calculator, and then you need to make sure it's not a problem for the family to pay for it. And for those beautiful families, like I said, for me and my sisters are all first gen. My beautiful family and my parents says, oh, you're going to pay for college on your own. And they told us a long time ago. So we all chose a different path of how to go. I had one sister that lived at home and then went in this community, UC Berkeley. Had another sister who went to community college and then went to UC Davis and did not live at home. She was ready to get out of here. And I did leave at 18, right? And then just went off into the colleges. All of us paying all on our own and the hard way. No one told us about financial aid. This is why I'm with you at 7:55 because this is important information. So please make sure to do that. And here's a beautiful thing. We have some beautiful students at Swarthmore, Syracuse. The reason I'm highlighting some of these schools because Stanford, because if you're like, well, I don't want my baby to go that far. Well, we have Magis students there. Santa Clara, let's see, Harvey Mudd just graduated, the Claremont colleges, Northeastern, right? I'm not going to name MIT. Yes, we have Magis students at MIT, right? So just this to let you Haverford, right? So Georgetown, right? So we have a lot of amazing students. Fordham. So it's hard for your babies to go somewhere that you don't know, but it's really important to make sure that these schools have a lot of money to give. It's because they are doing a lot of great things for opportunities and return on investment. So that's something that's really important. I'm going to leave this list up, but I am going to go to the chat to answer another question. I know there were some questions on here. Okay, next one will competitive colleges give preference to non-financial aid applicants? So I want to repeat that question again to everyone. Will competitive colleges, so since we're here, Columbia University, right? That's an Ivy League school, one of the top ones, give preference to non-financial aid? Now, I don't know if there's a list, to be honest. So what they're asking is need blind colleges list. What is that? Need blind means that in the admissions office, here gives you an example of some schools that they're going to accept your child without looking at how much you can pay for it. I'm looking for a legitimate website because there's scams out there. But a lot of those schools are on this list, which is also the list of schools that meet full need. College Greenlight gives a lot of support for first gen. There's a lot of schools doing fly-in programs. It's virtually right now, right? But these are schools you can see need blind, and you may be like, wait, what's that list? Don't worry, I hear your thoughts. I'm going in the chat. I'm going to send it to everyone. So now some of these schools, some of you may have never heard of. I mean, if I was 18, or I know my parents have never heard of any of these schools, right? So here you can see all these different schools. And, there are some schools that are not that are not as challenging, like Davidson, Denison. They're not easy schools, but are not like Harvard or Johns Hopkins or MIT. But these are schools that will not, basically in basic words, will not discriminate against a family who can't afford. When they say yes, they're need blind, they're not going to look whether you pay $1 or $100,000. Now, listen, if you're able to donate a building, everyone's going to listen, right? I call that not the varsity blues, but the blues, meaning, if you give a lot of money, then there's blue skies, right? And there are some schools like you see here, then let's just say pretend they are not need blind, right? Then that means they do look at the situation of how much a family. But these are the schools that are need blind. So this is a really important list. If you have not copied the chat room right now, you need to copy that list. Myself or your college counselor can help your beautiful child look at some schools that are not the heavy hitters. Okay, next question. Will the slide of this presentation be sent out to parents? So I will be giving this slide to Mr. Brian. He is our email king. And then also I am recording this. Oh my goodness. How do I look? So I will be recording this and then give that information. I don't know how much he can share. We do have a YouTube channel. It's my YouTube channel. Yeah, make me a YouTube channel star, right? I'll still work with you guys. Don't worry. But yeah, we'll try to see if we can put that up there. I think this is really important information. So we will do our best. I am not an expert on recording Zooms put on YouTube, but have your beautiful children bug me on Google Chat. They should know how to do that. And I love it. Just kind of maybe wait after November 1st. For those who are not senior parents or guardians, it's a big deadline for people applying early. So just a little bit, and there's Halloween. We gotta have some time to celebrate, all right? And the Day of the Dead, come on, we gotta do that. All right, next one. Sounds like CSS Pro takes longer and is more detailed. Yeah, did you see? It's 284, it's like 100 more questions. And you can do the Irs Data Retrieval, but they're gonna ask for everything. I don't know about you, I have extra medical expenses. I don't know about you, I pay a lot more extra for my kids' schooling. It's not free. You know, I don't know about you, right? But I have some special circumstances that it's not a number, it's I have to explain something. CSS Profile gives you a little box where you can fill that out, and that's where you tell them what's going on. Like, just matter of fact, X, Y, and Z is happening. The end. But here's the thing is, FAFSA, if you make a mistake, you can resubmit it again and put the same schools. No problem. But for CSS Profile, after you submit it, and let's just say you put an extra 0 by accident, like instead of your kid's savings account as 1,000, you put 10,000, you're gonna have to contact each of the schools on CSS Profile financial aid to make the changes. So here's some good news. This is complicated and it's a lot of work and it's hard just being a good parent. It's hard for your student just to be a good human being, and it's totally worth all that. But you are not alone. We are here. You just have to ask. And I know we can't do everything, but we could try to do it together. And one of the things is that the colleges will help you if you ask for their help. They really are there, right? And if a college is going to give you some slack, well, maybe do you want to do that? But here's also the good thing is, it gets a lot easier once they're in college, because instead of doing net price calculator for this and filling out this form, it's just for one school. Try to think about in 8th grade when you're doing all those applications for the highest. Oh my God. One school, Lowell wants this test, this one, this. It gets hard, but afterwards, like, okay, now you just have to focus on this, right? So, there are people to help you. Please do not go to those programs like, oh, come in, we guarantee you. There are scams out there. They do take advantage of a lot of people's fears. So please use the federal government, please use the colleges, please use us. And I know it's kind of hard talking to somebody else about your money. You have every right not to say anything, every right. But at the same time, knowledge is power. There was so many mistakes that our family did for me and my sisters for financially right. And we did okay, right? There's a will, there's a way, and and it just required a lot more to work hard. What I'm asking you guys is to use the resource so you can work smarter versus harder, right? Okay. There was another question, I think. Does a CSS have to be filled out each year like the FAFSA? It's a great question. So let's have let's just take two schools. If I go to University of San Francisco, that only takes the FAFSA, I don't need to do CSS Profile. That school only needs the FAFSA form. That's it. So every October, I tell people put it on their phone, like a birthday reminder. Oh, I have to do my FAFSA form. Don't be late, just get it done. But if I go to Santa Clara University, it depends, right? I have had some families, like for that school, that yes, you have to do the FAFSA CSS Profile, right? But I've had my own children who've gone to Oberlin College in Ohio, and remember, it's a blended family. Only one set of the parents had to fill out the form. It was only the FAFSA. So every college does it differently. So, so you just have to double check. But remember, you only have to check with one college. So it makes it a lot easier. I think the hard part is, which we're all dealing with, is making sure that transition for that kid's going well, that they are connected, not only with their peers, but with trusted adults, and doing something socially that is healthy and good for them, and also professionally, because after college, getting a job is a good idea. Okay, I don't have any other, oh, I do have another question on the chat. Look at you guys, you're amazing. I counted 17 college names that my daughter wrote on her list. Is that way too many to apply to? Well, I don't believe in numbers, and I'm the minority in that, as just nationally as a college counselor. I believe in not numbers of colleges. I think of two other numbers. One number I look at is number of statements, or also known as college essays, they have to write. Yes, I have a student who broke my record, 40 different unique essays. That is too much, because it's kind of like you have to be a speechwriter, right? Of giving a presidential speech, like, vote for me. This is what, yeah, that's right now. So you know, we have some kids who did not start, seniors I'm talking, we have them start writing, and they thought they were going to apply by November, and they're like, I'm not ready. Oh, I didn't know there, oh, I didn't know there's that, oh my God, I didn't know there's that other. It's a lot, because the workload doesn't ease up senior year. I mean, that's why SI has a reputation with the colleges, because of the rigor. I know it's kind of hard because we say balance, but you're working, so I get it, and I hear you. But that's why it gets hard. So I would ask, well, how many statements do you have, and how many have you written? So that's number one. The second thing is also one number I don't include. Well, if I'm applying to 4 UCs, which a lot of the UCs do recommend, like you have some challenge, possible, likely schools, right? That's one application. So I wouldn't count that as 4 schools, right? You're literally just checking a box. By the way, if your family is a Sobrino student who gets a certain amount of financial aid, remember, you do get a fee waiver from their college counselor for 4 UCs. Sobrino families get 2 CSUs free, and then all common applications for free. If there's some special circumstances going on with your family, please talk to your students assigned counselor, because it's about $100 each. So that number, I'm wondering, is it really 17 or is it really 11? It just depends how many UCs and CSUs. CSU is the same thing. There's 23 CSUs, 1 application, and majority of students don't have to write any essay statements on there, right? So, and then the number I look at is, well, every time I look at the list, I go, and I ask all my students and parents, so what school on the list, or I ask the 3 likelies. You're likely to get in, you like the school, and you likely can afford it. And you have 3 of those schools on the list. So that's the number I'm looking at, who's those 3. And I ask all my families that, right? So I don't care if you live in a studio or if you live in a house that looks like they have 20 studios in it. I'm going to ask everyone, because money is very fluid, right? Especially during this time. So I've been very lucky to work with some very strong families during 9/11, during the 2008 recession, and I've seen families flip-flop on both ends. So I know I'm not answering the question, but the key thing is it also balanced? That's what I look for. I have one student that I really talk to. It's like, you have not one challenge school. Like, you may get into every school, and you families may think, oh, that's awesome, but they're not challenging themselves, right? Like, this student has and there's another student who, guess what, just only chose really easy school because they have an amazing GPA, but they just don't believe in themselves. And I'm like, oh my God, everyone brags so much about you, right? So, and then there's also students who have only challenge school. I still remember the student who walked in one day, says, oh, I want to add 10 more schools to my list. And I listen. It's very important as a counselor and as a parent, like, you want to maybe say, like, you crazy, but you want to, no, just listen, right? Be attentive. And they said, oh, and they gave me like a whole bunch of Ivy League schools that are less than 10% admission, right? I'm like, what's going on here? I just asked, right? Well, I felt, and I go, let's look at the data. Let's look, you have access to that score. And I know score's new, and we could show you that. There's actually a YouTube video how to look at that, that shows on there, who got accepted, who got denied. So are they somewhere in that middle? And I go, why are you going to do all these schools? Look at the data, look at how you're hurting your grades in your classes. And then when are you going to have time for you, for your family, for your friends? That's all I had to say. I didn't say no. I didn't say, come on now. I just asked the question calmly and respect his answers, like, and he says, you're right. And he walked away. There's a lot of pressure out there. One thing we have to realize is that the generation now that's coming out of college, it is not about the name of the school. It's about the name that beautiful student made for themselves. So what is that school that's going to propel them? You may not know, but that school, San Francisco State, that everyone's too afraid to go to because it's just down the street, one of their alumni donated $25 million. They weren't born rich. They made themselves rich, right? Because they learned about a certain opportunities. And so it's really important for students to find colleges that are going to propel them into opportunities, to encourage them. And then second, who's going to support them? Every kid's going to have a bad day at school. Everyone's going to have that student or that professor is like, what? What did you say? Who's going to have their backs? Now, no school's going to be perfect. Everyone needs improvement, just like ourselves. But that's something also to keep that in mind. We got a question. On CSS Profile, asks how much I pay for tuition for other siblings. Yes, it does. I have an 8th grader applying for high school. Not sure if he will go to a private or public yet. Should I put the tuition for the private? Yeah, you put that higher cost. Yes, put that higher cost. And then also too, for those of you who are like, God, there's so many great car deals right now. My car, for those of you who don't know, the Fonseca Show car is my husband's car, and he makes me drive it everywhere. I wonder why. Anyway, it was not working too well. It's like, oh, well, maybe it's time for a new car. I'm like, no, don't get a new car. They're going to ask what car, model, and year. Yes, they even look at your car model that you're making, right? So yeah, so do please put in that the higher tuition. And if things change, well, that's why they ask you to fill the financial aid form again. But if you applied to just for a FAFSA school, so yeah, just put the amount. So just to let you know, CSS Profile will ask you what you're paying now and what do you propose you will be paying for next year, especially regarding tuition, not only for the student applying for college, but for the other children or dependents in the household too. All right, any other questions? All right, so I think that's it for the chat room, and it is 8:13, and we know the fountain of youth is drinking water, getting hugs from their loved ones, even if they don't want it, or don't force it on them, but if you're your child, give them a nice good hug, right? And then also some good sleep. Oh, I see a question. Every time I'm about to close, someone asks a question, but those are the best questions. Bring it on, bring it on. I love questions.
My last question. It's around.
I hope it's not your last one for moving forward, of course.
So if we put all this information in and it is deemed based on, you know, savings and everything that they see in your profile, that they deem that you can pay full tuition for the college, do they then is it just you don't qualify for any financial aid, but you're accepted into the school? And then in the reverse, if you cannot pay for the particular college and you still get no financial aid, I guess, does it then impact the admission? You know, does that make sense?
Total makes sense. So no.
Okay.
Did I get it? Okay. Makes complete sense. So let's go. So it's a different couple of scenarios, right? And the reason why I want to do net price calc and communicate with financial aid, Ms. Camper-Verity, I love when she always says, your financial aid officer needs to be your best friend. and there's words of wisdom there, right? So sorry to be chummy with them as you're being a senior. Okay, so you apply to a school and you get in. Remember, financial aid doesn't get officially looked at. You could talk about net price calculator, like proposals, but you don't get official financial aid until you get accepted. Everyone has to get accepted. So you get accepted and they say, I'll give you a real scenario of a family. They said, well, you got to pay full price. Well, why? Well, they have this home in Tahoe, a second home, not their primary home. So the colleges are looking at what you need, not what you want. They don't need that second home, right? So that's why for, you know, and these schools were about $30,000, $40,000, right? And so because of that extra home or asset, they said, well, this is how much. Now, usually there'll be a loan out there. If a student is strong, they could be a scholarship, but maybe not meet all of it or significant, but there'll be some money. And if they offer you a loan, by the way, you don't have to accept it. Well, do I have to go? If they say I need all this money? No, the only time you have to go is when it's called early decision. Early decision, and there's two of them, deadline dates. One is, which a lot of schools are moving towards, is now, November 1st, that's why there's a big deadline. There's big brownie points because that means if we say yes to you, you have to come. And there's another early decision too, that's in January. But there's one way you could break that contract, only one. If you say, I can't afford it. Not you can't afford it because you were planning on buying that new Lamborghini car, right? It's no, I really can't afford. Then you could break that contract. Okay, so that's scenario number one that I heard. Scenario number two is, and I'm gonna be honest, we have had amazing, strong students who were foster youth, homeless, I mean, you name it, all the above. So their dollar signs is zero. Zero. And what happened for the colleges? Well, the colleges that you saw on that list is on the chat who are need blind, they don't look at that. They're like, we're good with our money. We got money to give, but are you good enough and strong enough to be a contributor to our campus? That's what they're looking at, right? And do you provide the need that we want? And those schools are not looking for financial need. I mean, they're not going to say no to someone giving them $1 million legitimately, not the other way in Varsity Blues. But they have taken good care of themselves, so they don't need to look at that. Now there are some schools, and there are going to be more of those schools who are going to look, okay, who can pay? Who could pay full price? Who could pay for? Notice what I started off in the beginning of this conversation. I said every college in the nation got a hit financially. There are some schools that I know who lost $8 million. Those schools that lost $8 million are lucky enough where they go, hey, donor, can you give us $8 million? And they got it. Like, this is a true story. I don't make up this stuff. So they need the great students. They don't need the students with the money. They're good. They're good. But there are going to be more colleges look at that. At the same time, The reason why I advertise my age over and over is because history is very important. In 9/11, during the 2008 recession, if you have a diverse college list, right, and you look around, right, you know, and you don't have a narrow list of schools, right, there will be some schools that will invest in you. Our government has aid. I just told you there's a Cal Grant that you could get free tuition at a UC CSU. There's a handful of our students who do commute from home, right? But they're making it happen, right? You know, the kid who went to a community college, who transferred into UC Berkeley and lived at home all those 4 years, who's now has a job in New Hampshire, he's not crying about living at home anymore, right? That's why it's important to have a diverse list, because it's hard right now to see like who's going to support them. I have more and more of my students looking at like, how are the colleges treating kids during COVID-19? What a great example to check out, kids. Everyone thinks about the money. Everyone thinks about the title and the internships. What I think about is who's going to have my kids back when there's something bad that happens? Who's going to protect my kids? I mean, just look at the news in the last year of things that have happened. You want to make sure that there's someone going to support them. And what a better way to judge a relationship is during times of crisis, right? We all know that you know who that friend, that family member who got your back when things are bad, and then who turned around when things were bad. So COVID-19, though it's a very hard experience for everyone involved, gives us some great insight as well too. All right, with that, please know a couple of things. Number one, because I don't think I ever say this enough, I really do appreciate the time and energy all of you come and do. You know, I remember as a little girl waiting for my mom coming home, and that's why I could sleep anywhere on the floor, because I fell asleep on the table all the time waiting for my mom getting off of the bus. She worked on Hyde Street in the middle of the night, so I always was worried about her. So for you guys to take that time now just to be on Zoom and to listen and to share your questions and concerns, thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, it's hard being a parent, especially now, encouraging your kids for opportunities, because guess what? This is the appropriate age where like, I know everything. Didn't you guys say that? I know I did, and you know, so, and we're here to support, but you're not alone. Let us know their struggles. Communication is key. And then let me communicate what's important we do have, right? Because we do know that students feel very scrambled right now, and I don't think there's either too much support or they don't know where the support is. So right before here, every Thursday at 4 o'clock, the students, we have a college Magis workshop. It is just a place for Magis students. It doesn't matter if you're a senior or freshman or sophomore, just to go and do some work in college stuff. And then also on Sundays during the application project, we have Magis Strong Sundays at 10 a.m. on Zoom, just to help those seniors to finish up those last minute college application, because we don't have that environment of dropping in and asking questions in the hallway. So we make it a Magis Strong Sunday. If you are on Twitter or Instagram, why aren't you following us? I want us to be the #1 school that has the most followers. We have some great stories, information about college or just fun stuff. So at St. Ignatius on the chat room, follow us. I want us to be #1. Tell a friend, right? So please know that. And then also we have some non-college stuff, right? It's not all about college. It seems like it all the time with me, is on Wednesdays at noon, from noon to 1, we have Magis Chat and Chill. Also on behalf of our counseling department, after that on Wednesdays, from 1 o'clock to 3 is just counseling couches, right? So, and if you're like, what did she say? That's just go ask. Ask Mr. Bryant, ask that trusted adult you know, just ask. If you don't get a response in a timely manner, it's not that we don't care, it's just like, it's just putting these pieces, like all the pieces just felt like, oh my God, which piece do I pick up? And sometimes we just need your help to remind us. So please, if we don't contact you right away, just let us know, because we love it. We love your students. And if, you know, that right there, that little display, I wanted to show you that I was fortunate enough, talk about a blessing. I've had a family where I counseled 4 of their beautiful children through the college. And during COVID-19, they found a way to drop this off for me. And if I ever feel inspired and great, is because of your students. And because they're great is because of each one of you guys out there. So I applaud you. Congratulations on you. Take some rest. And remember that motto, and it's okay to take a pause in between, but we together can't stop and won't stop for everybody. Okay, everyone? All right, thank you so much. I will send all this information to Mr. Brian, and then, and on behalf of the Magis team, thank you. Have a wonderful night. Be safe. Take care. And we will see you hopefully next month. Mr. Brian will send it out to you, our Magis Q&A, where we'll talk about anything you want. You can go for your night walks. You could be on the job. Just do it. I do it all the time for my kids. We don't care as long as we get connected one way or the other, okay? So we will have that quarterly. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vaccaro.
Thank you.
That was a lot of info, but it was great.
Oh, good. Thank you. I mean, I think you've heard it a couple of times, right?
I've heard it since freshman year, so.
Yeah. So do I improve over age? No, it was a lot of information. Yeah, we and if you have a question out there, John, feel free to let me know. But you know, we have that general one, right? Dino from Dartmouth that does, which I think is good, comprehensive, and it's no joke. Here's from the college, but we still found the modules, like sometimes we need those nitty gritty, those unique stories, information, stuff like that. So appreciate the feedback later on, maybe after your scholarship is done and after your November 1st.
I just finished my draft, all 9 pages. So
Yay.
I just need to type it up. But yeah,